the last one is, what's the point you see the most when you drink lager?
If you can sit in a Munich beer garden and drink 3 liters of beer
Yes.
and not be tired of it by the end of the 3rd liter, I think that's a very well crafted lager. You bet. My name is Bill Lai. I'm one of the owners and one of the brewers here at Bierstadt Lagerhaus in Denver, Colorado.
Can you tell me how your brewing story was?
Sure. I was in a job that I didn't like about 26 years ago, and I decided to go get an education in brewing, and I went and got that education. And I came back and I worked at a brew pub making lots of everything. And then after 13 years of working there, they decided they didn't want me to work there anymore, and I was fired.
Yes.
It ended up being the best thing ever. I went to another brewery named Dry Dock.
Yes.
We won a bunch of medals at Dry Dock. And then I went to Prost. I started another brewery here in Denver. And Ashley went with me, and we were the brewers at Prost. And then that didn't go well. And then we decided to open our own company here. And we've been here for about 6 years.
Then let's talk about the brewery. Can you tell me about the name, the Bierstadt Lagerhaus?
Yeah, I was looking for another name, and names are impossible these days because everybody has used all the names.
Yeah.
But I was reading a book in German about Bamberg, and they called it Bierstadt des Franconia, which means the main beer place of Franconia. Bierstadt kind of translates to beer city.
So that's
kind of.
That's why you have the city logo there.
Yes. Kind of. Also, there's a mountain in Colorado, a 14,000-foot mountain named Bierstadt.
Really?
And people have taken our beer up on top of Mount Bierstadt.
That's
And
cool.
and they've sent us pictures of them drinking Bierstadt on Bierstadt.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's really cool. That's
So,
really
and we decided that this go around we would only make lager.
Oh, okay. I think the old copper kettle is really iconic here. We don't see that kind of equipment at other breweries, mostly, right?
Sure, there are a few in the United States, but very few.
So, like, how did you come up with buying almost like a decade-year-old?
An antique.
Yeah, yeah, it's an antique.
An antique, really. I have always liked the aesthetics of them. I love how beautiful they are. I love the history of them. It's always makes me wonder who's made beer on this system before. It's been making beer for 90 years now. I find that fascinating. Also, if you're making lager beer, there are very good reasons to use copper. One of them is it reduces the unpleasant sulfur aromas just by nature of the copper itself, the ions, when you're making beer. I found it just beautiful, and I wanted to make beer on something that was beautiful, and I really like that. I find it inspirational.
So you guys have those few horizontal tanks, right?
Yeah.
Does those horizontal tanks actually makes a difference?
So yes, there is something about the surface area that when the yeast is falling down through it, and it has so much shorter distance to go, and so your beer clarifies more rapidly. I will say this though, seemingly a lot of people in America now just think, "I'll get a lager tank and make lager."
Yeah, they do.
There's a million other things besides getting a lager tank that you should do first. But if you've done those other things, yeah, the lager tanks are one. And if you had cylinder conical tanks and you decided to make a couple lagers, they work beautifully. But if you can have a horizontal tank, it does do some nice things.
Oh, I get it. And like I know like every part of brewing lager is really important to make that excellent lager, but if you have to say the most important part of brewing a lager, what would it be?
It's patience.
Patience.
So the patience to go slow, the patience to let it ferment at a very cold temperature, and it takes longer when you do that. The ingredients are, yeast, water, malt,
Yeah,
hops.
that's all.
There's one more. It's time. There's one more ingredient, and if I would say there was any technique that will stand out above all the others, it's time. Take your time, go slow, you'll be rewarded.
If there is a brewery that really wants to make great lager, do they have to do a decoction mash, or do they have to do a processing, or do they have to lager a bit longer?
If I had to pick all of those things, I would pick the longer, slower, lower temperature over decoction. If you can do them all, do them all, right? Because it's all a link in a chain.
Yes.
But if I had to pick one, I would pick time over decoction. I would pick time over krausening. But again, we try to incorporate as much of that as we can. But it's more important, I think, to go slow and go cold. The fermentation is the most important thing. Of all the things you do, the fermentation is most important, and that's done in a lager slowly.
Slowing. let's talk about the lagers. So,
Yeah.
like after a few wars in Europe, lager has been the most popular style in the world, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But it wasn't same in the craft beer scene. Like they didn't want lager anymore. Like they wanted something different.
I would agree with that, except for I think what happened was the big lager breweries decided they had to make everybody happy, and so the beer got blander and blander and blander. Lagers aren't supposed to be bland; they're supposed to be flavorful.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
if you're
yeah.
trying to make a nation of 200 million people happy, you try to make it as inoffensive as possible.
Yeah, yeah.
And so the craft brewing movement arose because everything was bland.
Oh.
And so what happened was the first
yes.
thing that got popular was IPA because it tasted nothing like the bland beers. Now in America, people are rediscovering lager doesn't have to be flavorless and bland, but it also doesn't have to be 100 IBUs and ink black. It can be subtle without
Yes.
being bland.
Right.
It can be sublime without smashing you in the face with flavor.
But still, like even like 4 or 5 years ago, most of the craft beer people will think lager is a kind of a boring style, and they would more look for something more hoppy, more like really sour,
Sure,
like
yeah.
imperial stouts.
Sure.
But you started the brewery when lager wasn't that hot like these days.
Took a chance.
So like, how was it?
Oh, it was fine right off the bat.
Oh really?
Yeah. People think that it was risky to open a lager-only brewery because everybody was drinking bigger and darker
Yeah.
and stronger. But they're not. The craft brewing scene is only 10 to 15% of all consumers. 85% of consumers are still drinking yellow beer. So it wasn't really that much of a risk. And if you want an IPA, there are 9 other breweries in this neighborhood you can go get them. So if you're wondering why it was less risky than opening an IPA brewery, well, you can get IPA everywhere.
Yeah,
Where
yeah,
were you
yeah,
going
yeah.
to get a well-made lager? And I knew that there would be an audience for it, and there is.
Wow. You thought the niche market for the lager would be.
I'm a contrarian. I like doing the other thing.
Wow. Okay. So like, lots of people were saying the days of lager would come again, even like 6 or 7 years ago.
Sure, yeah.
Like every year, but it has finally came.
It's here, I think. Yeah, I believe it.
Horizontal tanks and the lengthened lagering and the side poles, like they're everywhere right now. But you guys were doing that like
I
2
would
years
say-
ago, right?
But now I see a lot of it, and I don't want to take credit for it, but I do think we were
One of the
really,
first
really
brewers,
early,
right?
really early in the whole
Yeah, you
process.
guys are.
I'm feeling grateful that we survived the shutdowns and everything. And I think we're getting back on track to doing very, very well. But I'm really happy that people are starting to rediscover lager because it's my favorite style to drink. And I think when it's done well, it's a very good beer to drink. I like IPA as well. I have friends that make extraordinary IPA.
Oh, really?
But drinking 3 of them gets difficult. They're too alcoholic and they start to wear you out. And they start to wear me out. I don't know if they wear you out. But that's why
They
I
do,
like
they do.
lager. Yeah.
Wow, okay. So the iconic beer, the Sloper Pils, is poured slow, as,
Yeah.
as the name says.
Yeah.
And it took me 8 minutes to get a single glass. So like, is there a specific reason for the slow pour?
8 minutes is a little on it, so you can get your beer.
5.
It's 5 to 8, somewhere around there. And that's typical for draft German pills as well.
Yes.
They take the time to stack it up. There are some aesthetic reasons. You get that dry foam on top of dry foam.
Yeah,
and you
like
end
this.
Up, you end up with this stuff on
Oh,
the side
yes,
of the
yes,
glass.
yes.
I think it softens the beer a bit, and I think that foam holds the aroma of the beer very nicely. So we take the time to do it the way I've seen it done in Germany. There are other ways to do it, but our choice is to slow pour.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's what we do.
Oh, wow, okay. So there are some questions from my viewers in Korea. So first one is like, they always ask me this.
Yes,
Do you have any plan to distribute to other like cities or countries?
we are not big enough. We made 2,000 barrels this year. We've got lager tanks coming in that we could do 4,000 barrels eventually. But you got to realize that's just such a drop in the bucket. So it's just not a practical thing. And to be honest, if we could sell all of it in this bar on draft, we would. It's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
most profitable way to do it. And I very much enjoy the draft experience of our beer. We now can, but a lot of that canning is to point people back towards lager beer and back towards our place. So we're hoping we get enough cans in people's hands around the city that they stop to think about where they could get this on draft.
Wow, okay. the next one is, what was the beer that motivated you the most, like in German or like Czech or?
Yeah, that's a great question. I just got back from Munich. In fact, this is my first day back. And in Munich, my favorite beer in Munich is Augustiner Helles.
Oh, really?
I love Augustiner Helles. I drank far too much of it over the course of the last 10 days, and I really enjoyed it. But from the Pils world, there are three particularly in Germany that I patterned slow pour after, and it's kind of an homage to those beers. Jever Pils,
Aver?
Jever,
Oh, Aver.
Jever, Bitburger,
Bitburger.
and Augustiner. Those three pills are beautiful, and I really wanted something like that. They're crisp and refreshing and aromatic and all the things I like about those.
So you prefer German Pils more than the Czech Pils?
Absolutely, and it is just a personal preference. I find Czech lager harder to drink in quantity.
They are. Like, they're more hoppy. They're more strong.
They're more hoppy. They're also way more malty. They're sweeter. They're heavier. Look, I've been to Prague. I like them too. It's not that I don't like them. I do prefer the German.
But do you think about lagers with lots of twist? Like, do you know the Jack's Abbey?
Of course. In fact, I do just met them.
They're doing all these special lagers, hop lager, like sour lager.
Absolutely. And so I think we should make the things that we're passionate about. And they are passionate about pushing the envelope. I'm passionate about being a traditionalist. If we were to make a beer with Jack's Abbey, we would have nothing against making a hoppy lager.
Oh.
And we have made a few. Absolutely. But for our core bands and for things we do, mostly just very traditional stuff. But I've got nothing against people that want to try a different hop or a higher gravity or more alcohol or less alcohol or a different color. I've got nothing against it. I'm all about the making the things they want to share with people.
Oh. So the last one is, what's the point you see the most when you drink lager?
I think if you can sit in a Munich beer garden and drink 3 liters of beer
Yes.
and not be tired of it by the end of the 3rd liter, I think that's a very well-crafted lager. Because if you've managed to miss anything, if anything sticks out too far, or if it's lacking, in the middle of that 2nd liter, it's not something you want a third of. And I think when I drink other people's lager, it's do I want a 2nd and 3rd of these? That's my benchmark for that.
Oh, wow.
Because if it's off in some way, I might not want that 3rd beer because it's tiresome in some way or it's lacking in some way. But if it's well crafted, you want that next beer, and I think that's how I like to judge other lagers.
For last, have anything to say for the craft beer people about lagers? Because in Korea, like lagers aren't really taken seriously.
And this is what I would say to the people in Korea watching it: is lagers don't have to be bland; they can be sublime, and it just takes a little more time, a little more technique. You should drink what you like. If you like milkshake smoothie sours,
Yeah.
you should drink milkshake smoothie sours. But at some point, I believe you're going to tire of that eventually, and maybe a spacer for you is a lager that doesn't taste like nothing, and it tastes like the person that made it cared about it. I wanted to present it to you in a way that you could appreciate, not just that you would not think about it. But I think that there's some real nobility in a very well-made lager. That is why a lager took over the world. It's a very drinkable, sociable style. You and I can sit and have 3 of these and still carry on a conversation. Can you drink 3 milkshake sour smoothies? I don't know. I'm not saying you can't. I'm saying it's easier to do it like this.
Yeah. I get it. Okay.
You can teach me something now. So I know how to cheers in about 5 or 6 languages, but I don't know Korean.
Gombe.
Gombe.
So let's say. So
Oh.
So I'll get her.
This is terrible.
So I'll get her glass right now.
Perfect. Nothing like a 9% Baltic Porter. Perfect.
For a prof, right?
So Gombe.
Gombe. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Vincent. That was great.
Thank you very much, Bill.